I want you to get together.
What did I see recently? Someone posted something, and it was on a short, and they showed that Tucker Carlson was talking about the Nephilim. Have you seen this? Have you? No, I'm serious, right? I can't find the short. We'll look it up afterwards, but you just type it in and type in Tucker
Okay.
Carlson mentions the Nephilim, right? But this is great.
Lobster's probably freaking out.
Top Lobster, yeah, yeah, yeah. He mentioned it, yeah,
Yeah,
as
he's
well.
probably freaking out about it.
Yeah, he mentioned it, and but it's serious. He's in this interview. He's on a podcast with someone else, right? And they both seem like political commentators. Him and this woman, and there's this guy who's the podcaster who's like, "You can talk about whatever you want here, man. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about it. This is the place to talk about all the weird stuff, you know." And Tucker Carlson's there talking about how it seems like all he says like, "Look, I've been around for ages, right? And I'm a political commentator. I've interviewed political people for years, you know, for decades now." And he says, I've noticed this strange change in the attitudes of these people now who control everything. And it's like, they're just evil. It's like, they're just doing evil for evil's sake. Like, it's like, it says in the past, you know, it was like, it was to gain a political foothold somewhere or to progress the career or something, or there was at least like a personal reason for it or a justification or something, you know what I mean? And he says, and you always knew the type of people who would be like that for their own purposes. But it
Yeah.
seems like now they're just doing it because they just hate us. They hate children, they hate humanity. They want to see us dead. And they're just doing evil things for the sake of being evil. Like, and he even says like, look, I don't know what it is. Like, but I've heard people say things like, you know, is it the Nephilim perhaps? And all this type of stuff. Like, and she
Oh
and
my
the
gosh.
other woman's like, I was just gonna say that. And he's like, no, no, well, I'm not saying that. You know, I'm just a normal guy who has a thing. He tries to pull back on it. But the way he says it with like a smile and a twinkle behind his eyes, like he wants to bring this up. He wants to mention the Nephilim, you know, because I think he thinks there's a demonic force behind it, basically. But you could tell
Yeah.
you could tell this other woman was well up for talking about the Nephilim in that moment, but then she quickly backtracks when Tucker does. Do you know what I mean? Because she doesn't want to seem like the crazy one. But you can definitely tell she's been watching my videos or something, right? And she's like, yeah, 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 it's definitely the Nephilim. Do you know what I mean? But I think
Man.
because she's still in that public eye, she didn't want to then be the crazy one talking about the Nephilim. She very quickly retracted it. But like, like I think even like these people who can recognize it now. But yeah, Tucker Carlson's a relatively mainstream figure. You know what I mean? You wouldn't expect the word Nephilim to ever come out of his mouth, but it
Yeah.
did. It did, and that's weird. You know,
No.
that's a weird sign of something to do with the times, right? Definitely.
I, yeah. I got a few thoughts on that.
Go
So
go for it. Yeah.
I, I've really dug into this concept of gatekeeping, right? Because the
Yeah.
truther community, basically anybody that doesn't agree with them on a specific topic is just, defunded disinfo. But I started to actually study it um, objectively. And what I found with respect to the big event in 2019
Mhm.
was that there were three waves of what I call gatekeepers. So
Yeah.
you had the actual evidence. If you just looked into the scientific literature of the day, you could see that what they were saying wasn't true. Then you have these early adopters, and those people were like in real time cutting through the scheme, right? And those people would be banned, censored, all of that, right? And so that really seems that most of the censorship comes from if you're stopping the script in real time by spell breaking, that's when you're a huge threat.
Mhm.
And then you would have the kind of more mainstream within the truther community or alternative community, they would kind of break things first. And then what I noticed is you'd have the Joe Rogans and the Tucker Carlsons. They kind of were 6 to 8 month laggards on what the kind of inner circle was coming at, right?
Mhm.
They wouldn't say, you know, while it was happening, what the case was. There was this lag period. In the past, it was about 6 to 8 months. I actually calculated it. I'm like, okay, this event happens, then these people are saying it, and then okay, Rogan chirps in 6 months later, kind of thing. But
Mhm.
even that is now starting to speed up, and so because people are becoming aware, they need gatekeepers to. It's kind of like a almost a dam, right? So they're like regulating the energy or the flow of water, and instead of water, it's like human awareness, right? And so they need those gatekeepers to just manage that, right? Like they know it's the dam's going to break, but we just got to keep that flow at a certain point. But
Yeah.
the more people keep becoming aware, it's like those gatekeepers are forced to adopt these types of positions quicker and quicker, right? And so like and my mind isn't made up on Tucker. Like I think he very clearly does fulfill that gatekeeper role, but maybe he's just like an old rich boomer who just doesn't think that deeply and calls it as he is, or maybe it's totally controlled and everything's theater. I haven't made my mind up about that, but regardless, I see this quickening within, even within the gatekeepers, right? Because if they don't resonate where the dominant consciousness is at the time, then they're going to be seen as shields and totally like blown past. So
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. It's highly likely Tucker is an establishment stooge of some kind. Right? I know he's gone the whole he's going his own way thing. He detached himself from Fox News, didn't he? I think, and he's kind of like he's become this independent as he wants to be seen now. I think that's what's happening. I don't know. I'm not into American media, but I hear about these things. But it's the cult that ends up following people like him because he did say that little bit of thing. That's the truth. That's where it gets weird for me. That's where I realize there's something off about this. Like, why is Tucker Carlson saying the word Nephilim? I mean, come on. Like, come on. Like,
Yeah,
it is suspect. I agree with you. It probably is the gatekeeping thing. And like you said, they always come well after the fact, but the immediate spell breakers, as you call them, the immediate people who are there breaking the programming as it's coming out, they're the ones that get silenced, discredited, lose their job, and but then when these controlled opposition people turn up, and they start talking about it, who are coming out of the establishment, it's always well after the fact when the evidence is well understood already. And it is kind of like what's that thing they describe as? It's like releasing a pressure valve, isn't it?
yeah,
It's just
yeah, and they get the
yeah,
credit, right? So
yeah,
somebody like Understanding Conspiracy has been dropping Nephilim bombs for years, right? And then now when it gets into the collective consciousness, it's like, oh, Tucker's breaking that spell,
yeah.
right? So they want to divert all the energy and attention to them,
Mhm.
right? Like Tucker's been like that for years. Like he broke the trucker convoy here in Canada, right? But then Tucker got all the attention. They called him Trucker Carlson. It wasn't the activists on the ground who were, you know, the real heroes, right? It's Tucker and Rogan, right? And so that's where I think another mechanism is there, where they're trying to just keep you away from the people who are actually dropping this knowledge, right? So it's always a day late and a dollar short, and I think that's the key for gatekeeping. But again, it's a game. I think it's mathematical. Eventually, the dam's gonna break, and one part of that I think is they want you to be hopeless in this, right? So you know, let's conspiracy hat on. How could this work for Tucker? Like maybe like Werner von Braun's secretary basically said Werner von Braun predicted on his deathbed like World War III, and the final one was the aliens. And so I think that could be the card, right? They might start revealing the fact that Nephilim are running things, and then say, guys, there's nothing we can do, and that could be the paradigm shift, right? Where they
Yeah.
bring in the fake alien invasion. I don't.
I want you to get together.